Okay. And we have in Portuguese, you have yours too? Okay. So, we need to make sure that everything is fine. Well, I hope you had a good time this morning at RootsTech. This is not a RootsTech event. You see, it's not as well prepared as RootsTech. You know, it's we're not as organized, and I think you know, we had some miscalculation by the delivery supplier of what food is and how we consume it. So welcome. We're glad you're here. And I'm Jean-Luc Magret. I'm the Family Search Malta Area Manager over Africa. And we have a lot of our friends from Africa here today. We have people, let's start welcoming them. Let's start with the South. People in South Africa, do you want to raise your hand? Or okay, so we have people from South Africa here. Then let's go to Mozambique. We have Mozambique, okay, wow. So we have people from Zimbabwe. Okay. We have people from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Okay. And we have people from the Republic of Congo-Brazzaville. And we have also people from Ivory Coast. And so we're very excited. Also, so that's for Africa, you know. And then we have Brazil, you know, and we have Brazil. We have a lot of those countries. And Kenya, we also have Kenya. Sorry, we have people from Kenya here. So for many of them, this is their first time experience in RootsTech. So it's we have decided to organize this symposium because I think it's a beginning of a new era for genealogy and DNA and some of those things that we can do this. So today I've asked our dear friend Tom. Tom, I'm sure many of you know Tom, some may not know Tom. Tom is our expert in African American genealogy, our top family search advisor and expert into it. He's been doing a lot of things. He has invited a lot of you here, so I've asked him to lead a discussion on the subject today. I know we're still waiting for one guest, but we're here, everybody's here, so we're good. So thank you everyone for coming. I think today is going to be the beginning of a new era into this. So Tom, I'm going to turn the time to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jean-Luc. And thank you for the group that are from the United States of America. Can you raise your hand? All right. Thank you, Jean-Luc, and thank you for helping this come together. Jean-Luc was very instrumental in reaching out with me and others to make sure that we could make this happen. And we really want this to be a bit of a discussion. We've kind of given it a title. I hope you like the title. Roots Revealed, a discussion on how DNA is reconnecting African Americans to their ancestral homelands. And I'll be moderating today's discussion, but we have our panelists here. Adrian Abuodin, you want to raise your hand just so that, no, hopefully you know who Adrian is. And then Sherman McRae, and I'll let them have an opportunity to introduce themselves and the organizations they're a part of. And then Prince Jon James Olomo. So you gotta give it up for our panelists. Give it up for our panelists. So I want to start with a bit of a story, my own personal story. In 2016, I was helping to support Family Search in Africa, and I had the opportunity to go and spend 11 days in Ghana. And during that time, I was able to help capture footage and photos and things that help our contractors who are doing oral genealogy with the work that they're doing. And as part of that, I had a very profound experience while I was there. But one of the things that was burning on my heart when I got back was my DNA. As an American, I had never taken my DNA. I didn't know where my roots, my ancestral roots were. And so I came back with the determination to take a DNA test and find out where are my people really from. And I decided that I was going to live stream it as I open up my ethnicity results from the Ancestry DNA test that I took. So I'm gonna just play a little 2-minute video of what my experience was when I got my DNA results.
So your DNA results, Tom Reed, here we go, okay? Tom Reed! Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness, ethnicity estimate, right here, 42%. Cameroon and Congo, 15%. Benin and Togo, 9%. Mali and 10%. Oh my goodness! I don't know. Like, this is just, like, I've been doing, I'm gonna cry. Oh my goodness. This is amazing. I know what happened. I'm not sad that these are tears of joy. Although I got this ugly look on my face right now. Woo! Wow. You know, we're getting together now. You know, I've been with Family Search for 3 years, and really the last 18 months with the Freedmen's Bureau project has been when I've been most interested in finding out where I'm from. And because of the project, to be honest, I haven't been able to do the research I wanted to do. I'm still with my family in, you know, Montgomery County, in Mississippi and Alabama. And you know, for me, I would love nothing more than to connect, obviously, with my roots in Africa. You know, and today, here it is. This is my connection. My connection right now is DNA. 42% Cameroon and 15% Benin and Togo.
It was an emotional moment, to say the least, because I had a hole in my heart that I didn't know existed, but got filled when I knew where I came from. And our friends at Ancestry, raise your hand, our friends at Ancestry, have updated their ethnicity estimates from that time when I took my DNA test. And so my roots are more strongly in Nigeria. I just keep saying I get blacker and blacker as the ethnicity estimates increase, because that percentage just jumps higher and higher. But that's what it meant to me, and that's what it means to many African Americans, to know our roots, to be able to connect to our people on the African continent. And we've got our panelists here today that have been dealing in this space and doing this work. And many of you in the audience are doing this work and helping many of us connect. And so we want to talk about that connection and how can we improve that connection and what can be done with our friends on the continent of Africa and in Brazil and in the United States to bring all of this together, to make more of the discoveries like mine a reality. And so, like I said, I'll let them introduce themselves. So we'll just go Jon James, if you'll introduce yourself, and then I'll throw out some questions to them. And if you have a question, we'll hold it to the end. We'll do a Q&A at the end of our panelists. But we're going to go through some questions. Hopefully that'll be insightful for you, spark ideas, and hopefully lead to future discussions about how we might work together. So, Jon James.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, that's on now. My name is Jon James Olomo, and I am the CEO of Tribal Tapestry. We are a DNA company, and we test African Americans and others that are in the African diaspora, and we connect you guys to the tribes that you descend from in Africa. And from there, we seek to give you those culturally immersive experiences to allow you to fully integrate into those tribes and become what you were born to become, the African that you guys are. So I'm honored to be on the panel. Thank you for having me here, Tom. And I'll go to the next expert. The super expert is sitting next to me.
Is this on? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adrienne Abiodan. I am a DNA researcher on the DNA research team at Legacy Tree Genealogists. I've been there for 4.5 years, and I've been doing family research for over 20 years now, and DNA for about 20 years. On the DNA research team, I help to reconstruct families using DNA. That could be finding my mom, my dad, my parent, my grandparent, or that could be finding more distant ancestors and reconstructing families that were disconnected through the transatlantic slave trade. So that's a little bit of what I do. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Hi, my name is Sherman McCrae. I work for Family Tree DNA. I've been there since maybe 2018. I started off like in customer service, and then I moved over to a different department called a groups department, where I began doing like presentations. And so right now I work in research and development. I work on primarily research projects, kind of like behind the scenes. I help write some of the reference, like the population descriptions that are on the site, so if you test positive for Nigerian, etc. I wrote some of that a few years back. And so lately I do my own little projects where I test Africans. So I've tested people from Nigeria, Ghana, Angola, and a few other places. So I'm actually looking to do a bit more testing with Africans and whatnot. And so that's primarily what I do right now, is do my own research projects and presentations.
Thank you, thank you. So my first question is actually, I'm going to steer it towards Jon James, and we won't watch the video again. So you shared with me your kind of personal experience. You come dressed today in traditional Yoruba. Is that? Tell us about your personal experience with DNA testing, and you know how it's influenced your approach.
Right. So for me, my journey was long, as many of us have a long journey. It took me about 7 years of records research, multiple DNA tests, etc. And I finally was able to discover that we were descendants of the Yoruba tribe. And from there, I found a cousin, my African cousin, where we share the same common ancestor. So his fourth great grandfather is my fourth great grandfather. And this particular gentleman is an Olomo, and he lives in Houston, Texas. And so over time, we ended up on the phone. And it was like a family reunion with someone that you had never met, but had always known. And so we had a phone call. It was pretty emotional. He explained some things to me about our ancestry and the royal bloodline that's in our family. And so from there, I found my way over to Nigeria, and sitting in Shasha Kingdom, which is in Alimosho, which is in Lagos, Nigeria. And so just in that much alone, I found some things three things I would say that many African Americans are just burning to know. Number one, what tribe do we descend from? Mine was Yoruba. Number two, what is that African last name that was ripped away during the transatlantic slave trade? And then number three, where in Africa do you come from, right? And so I'm able to narrow that all the way down to not just a country, but a state, a place, and a town. And so the King of Shasha, our initial meeting, it was very interesting. It was a little cold at first for about 90 minutes, and then after that, it turned around, and we became the best of friends. He called in the oracle for me to meet the oracle in the palace the next day. And if you're thinking Matrix, and when Morpheus says meet the oracle, it was like that, you know. He calls in the oracle, and I show up to meet the oracle. I think I'm going to talk about that a bit later. But long story short, the oracle did a divination, and from there I began going through several rites of passage and several initiations. Eventually they initiated me into kinghood, which is what happens prior to taking certain titles in Nigeria and things like that. And so over time they titled me Prince of Shasha Kingdom, in Lagos, Nigeria. And that is why I wear the cultural attire. When the king places these beads, you know, Nigeria and West Africa, the beads carry meaning. And so these would be the beads for a prince. These would also be the same beads for a king, except they would be longer, and there might be 2 rows instead of 1. But when they put those beads on your neck, you go through the entire confirmation ceremony, and something inside of you it shifts and it changes forever, and you carry that responsibility of the title. And so for me, we talk about this a lot back home in Nigeria. The role that I play is to bring diaspora back home. And that is what led to creating Tribal Tapestry, our DNA company, connecting people back home to Africa and then taking you guys there. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I'll take this next question and kind of direct it towards Adrian. How do you set realistic expectations? You've been working with clients and things like that on tracing their African ancestry through DNA testing. And will you share maybe some successes or some experiences you've had?
Sure. So as a researcher, a professional researcher, I deal with a lot of unique, diverse individuals, and I like to treat them as individuals and really try to hear what it is their goals are. Overall, most people have the goal of discovery. They want to connect, discover. I think that's the theme of the conference, right? They want to discover something about their origins. They want to connect. They want to have a connection either for spiritual, for the name, for a location, a community. There could be a diverse set of reasons people are doing their ancestry. And so I really try to hear each individual and help them to understand what the limitations of the DNA testing, because there are some. So it can involve a great deal of time, years, to sometimes connect with our African cousins, if that's what they're after. It can cost a great deal of money sometimes to test our cousins and close family members and African relatives and people and communities that we just think we might be related to. So just trying to prepare them for the journey ahead, because it is a journey. And a personal success story I'll share is, I was telling someone earlier that I have tested with Ancestry DNA at the beginning of the inception of their database in 2011, 2012. And my mission was, when I started this, was to straight to Africa. That's all I wanted to do. I had tunnel vision. All I wanted to do was find African cousins and connect. And I didn't want, I have about 35% European heritage, but I really had no interest in that. And so through many years, it took about maybe a decade before I actually connected with an African cousin who had tested and was in the database. But I was able to connect. I've been able to connect with many now, but the one that I've had the most success with was a cousin who is a Yoruba cousin from Ogun State, Nigeria, and we had the opportunity to meet in Washington, D.C., which is where he lives, and I happened to be there for a conference. And I had asked him if he would test his parents, and he said, yes, I'll test my parents, so we sent them kits, and it turned out I'm related to his dad through my father. And then when I went to Nigeria, I took 2 DNA tests, and I asked him if I could test his grandparents, his 2 living grandparents. So I went and visited each grandparent, and I tested both. And then we weren't a match with either of them, but the 2 deceased grandparents, it let us know which of the deceased grandparents that we were related to on my father's side. So I know that I'm related to him through my father's mother's family, and he's related to me through his father's family. So, but that doesn't happen every day. And again, it takes a lot of time, patience, and money sometimes. So, trips to Nigeria. So
yeah, that's, I mean, you had that wonderful experience, and I'm so happy for you. But it's really only with kind of the advancements of DNA technology that it's coming more frequent. You said you took it in 2011, 2012, and it took this long. So Sherman, can you kind of help us understand some of the advancements in DNA testing technology and kind of how we're pinpointing specific regions, kind of like Adrian maybe did?
Yes, definitely. There's been a lot more advancements with DNA testing over the years. As you know, we see people test, and a year or so later, or 6 months later, Ancestry comes up with, they change our results, so we get an update, which is pretty cool. So I think, the main thing that companies have been doing is just making a real concerted effort to do more testing with Africans and African populations. So that in turn allows companies to add further refinements once you get a large enough data set. And it's just a lot of it has to do with the algorithms, just refining of the algorithms over the course of time, like identifying AIMS, ancestry information markers, where you're able to notice similarities with some populations, but also some differences. And also further refinements with by descent markers as well, just to keep refining those algorithms where now you're able to tie people back that share a common ancestor that may belong to a certain population. And so with Y-DNA advancements, so I work for Family Tree DNA, and I do most of my work is with Y-DNA and mtDNA. And so with Y-DNA advancements, you have next generation sequencing. And so with that type of testing, they're able to look at all the mutations that are in your body. So they're searching you for known and unknown mutations. And so with that type of testing, you're really able to refine the date for the common ancestor. Theoretically, if I took a test and he took one and he showed up as a match and we both do like a big Y700 or a next generation sequencing type of test, we'd be able to, because of the rate of mutations and looking at the similarities and the differences, we're able to tie back down to a common ancestor, at least get a date on that. And the same thing exists on the mtDNA side, but just not as frequently as you see it on the Y-DNA. And so I think a lot of the refinements that companies are doing, just making a more concerted effort to get a larger data set of Africans, that's really helping out, because now we're starting to differentiate between the different regions and ethnic groups by just having a larger sample size.
Thank you. It sounds like, these, with the additional testing and sequencing that can be done, that's what's really helping to refine where you go with your DNA. But for folks like me who just kind of did that DNA test, where do they go? Like after they start their DNA test, particularly to get in, like to maybe have more immersive experiences in their ancestral culture. And I'll throw this out to all of you. Adrian, you want to kind of kick this one off? I'd love to hear what the three of you think about that.
Sure. So I think you had asked where do they go. I think you have to ask where do I want to go, and that's going to differ for everyone. Do I want to have a fully immersive experience? Am I just looking for a name? Am I just looking for to fill in blanks in my family tree, and then that's good, I'm happy with that. Am I looking to connect with cousins? So I'll just use myself as an example. For me, I thoroughly enjoy connecting with my genetic relatives that I discover, my close and distant and unknown relatives. So I don't necessarily need to immerse myself in the culture, but I am just curious about where they're from, where their family's from, their names, what they can tell me. And I think it's just with DNA, one of the things I always tell people, especially as a descendant from ancestors whose families were torn apart from the slave trade, I think it's just so that our ancestors would be so elated to know that we have this science that we can use to reconnect and rediscover one another and just to acknowledge each other's existence. Even if we can't find the exact connection, even if there's 3 generations separating us, to be able to say, hey cousin, I see you, I love you, I'm so happy to know you're out there. And I'm not walking by people that are complete strangers anymore. So I think, that's a person like myself likes that. I know that there are, again, people want very different things from this. So the steps that they would take are going to differ, and they have to ask themselves, what would I like to get out of this?
Sure. Jon James, do you have any thoughts yourself?
Sure. I think when people get their DNA results, they should go home. They should go to Africa. They should go to the land of their ancestors. If you think back, I've sat back sometimes, and I'm very big on meditation. And I've sat back and mentally and spiritually gone through that journey of what is it like to be on that ship, going through the Middle Passage, stacked in a crate with feces coming down on you, with mothers who went overboard because they didn't want the baby in their belly to be born into slavery. And if you're in that position, one of the highest things that you have to be thinking is, I'm gonna make it back home, or my children will make it back home. And so, as descendants of our ancestors, they echo in our DNA. Their desires echo in our veins. And so it is our obligation to go home. When I was in Badagry, Nigeria, there's a place in Badagry where it's the point of no return. And so you're in this room at the size of an average kitchen in the US. And I went in there, they shut the door, it's pitch black. You're in this room, and they stack 40 people in this room. It's a little room, I mean, it's not too much wider than this table. And for 90 days, you're in this room. They open the door and throw some food in once a day. If you have to use the bathroom, you do it standing. Half the people, a third of the people would die from the smell. And so you come out of this room after 90 days and the light hits you. The light hit me just after a few minutes. But you come out of this room and your body is weak. You've eaten once a day for 3 months. And one guy has to hold an umbrella for the colonizer, if you will. He's holding this. I held it. I'm a pretty strong guy. My hands start shaking because the umbrella is 40 pounds. And you're shackled around your neck, your feet, and they walk you through the bush for a couple of miles, and you hit this marina. And when you get to that marina, you go across the marina on a boat, and you keep going through the forest. You drink from a well that would make people less willing to fight back. And then you get all the way to the shores. And there's the structure on the shores that you walk up. And it's disorienting just to walk up this particular structure. At that point, the mothers are separated from her children and put on a boat. The babies are taken away. The siblings are separated. The father is taken away from the family. Everyone is on a different boat, and that is the point of no return. And they would break the tribes up so that you would lose your mother's tongue and not know the language and not revolt on the ship. So the first time I did that in Badagry, I went back to my room, and I swear it was the angriest I had ever felt, but I didn't know who I was mad at. And I went to sleep so heavy, I tossed and turned, I finally went to sleep. The next morning, I woke up and I walked out to the marina, I'm looking at the water, and then I realized, I said, wait, this is the same marina that's down there. This is the marina that they would take slaves across. And it was the freest, lightest, most joyful feeling I ever had in my entire life, next to my children being born. My ancestors in my veins were dancing and they were celebrating, and they felt, we are finally home. And I took them all the way back home. And I can tell you that the spiritual freedom that comes from that, and the spiritual power that comes from going home, and I have stories for days, I'm not gonna tell all of them right now, but yes, go home, go back to the lands that we were taken from, honor your ancestors. It will change you from the inside out. It will change your vibration, because that's what vibranium really is. It's the DNA, and it is the vibration that you carry in your body. That's what it is, so go home. And if you need help, Tribal Tapestry will take you. We're doing tours to Nigeria in May and July.
I'm gonna jump a few questions just for the sake of time, but I want to ask this question of you, Sherman. How can we encourage more Africans to participate in DNA testing, and what strategies could make testing more accessible? I think that's the thing for us, is that we as Americans want to connect, but we have to have a pool of people to connect to in DNA to make that connection. What are some of your thoughts on this?
I think I wrote down some notes for this. I started looking over my questions last night, and I had so many bullet points, so I just jotted a few down. But I think one of the first things we could do is like programs about education, spreading education and awareness, whether it's through using like local leaders that understand how DNA testing works, to get them to talk to some of the people there and explain the benefits of this type of testing, as well as of course having local leaders and especially media campaigns. I think that could also kind of spread the word as well in terms of DNA testing. So just also respecting the cultural sensitivity norms, just respecting their culture, and just essentially gaining a greater understanding of that. But I think in terms of affordability, we could maybe even partner with like NGOs and other organizations, whether they're public or private, where we could actually test them more frequently, and more even have like mobile testing centers. In my eyes, we would have like regional centers, but in cases of going into more remote villages, I think that they would benefit from having mobile testing, just to go into those remote villages for people who may not have access. So accessibility, that's and also continue to expand, make advancements with DNA testing, just continue testing more and more Africans, because we're going to continue to gain more information, where we'll be able to refine it down even more with tribes and et cetera. And so those are some of the things that I have come up with in terms of encouraging more Africans to participate. I really think it starts with the local leaders, even the governments, in some capacity, just to show their constituents the benefits of this type of testing in terms of reconnection efforts.
Okay, thank you so much. Jon James, I'm going to go and talk about kind of policy changes. I know you've done some work to advance kind of dual citizenship through your organization and through your experiences. Can you talk more about what really could be done to improve that or to expand that, please?
Yes, my wish and hope, and especially with having so many illustrious dignitaries here from African governments, we would like people to have dual citizenship when they get their DNA results. I think that would be a very powerful thing to do for the diaspora as well as Africa. In the African mindset and context, we often think of tribal affiliations. And so if we were to look at the African American tribe as a tribe that spends $2.1 trillion a year in consumer spending, Kenya and Nigeria and Ivory Coast, there are opportunities to bring that money back home if we have programs like citizenship based on DNA. Right now, we're doing some work with the Nigerian government. We have a lot of support there through the Office of the Senate Leader, the Nigerian Diaspora Commission, and at this point, we're simply working on a framework for that. Right now, someone could take our DNA test and apply for citizenship in Benin, Sierra Leone, Burkina Faso is coming soon. So a lot of these programs are coming online. They're new. The frameworks are just really hitting the public over the next few months. So it's very exciting, but again, the benefit is connecting with the diaspora and bringing that foreign direct investment back into Africa. And that will give us a lot of global power and solidarity.
Thank you. Adrian, I'm going to ask you kind of, what's your opinion about how African Americans and Africans can kind of collaborate more effectively with genealogical research and with historical preservation. And then I'll just go ahead and throw out the question now. I'd love to hear from the three of you, what's maybe one thing that you want to have done as a result of this conversation and moving forward. So, Adrian, start, please.
Okay. Well, in terms of collaboration, what we want as African American people, I think we're asking, we want more African people to test, but we understand that our reasons sometimes are not necessarily the same reasons you might want to test or need to test. We are looking for connection, reconnection back to the continent. We need you to test to be our compass back to the continent. So that's where you African people come into the picture, but we know that, or my experience has been when having these conversations with African people from the continent whose parents were born there, grandparents were born there, is that I know my history. What importance is this for me to take this test? So I think we need to identify reasons that are mutually beneficial for you, either for health purposes or like you just mentioned with the citizenship initiative that having us to acquire dual citizenship and come over and invest in the continent might be of some benefit too. So just finding what it is that appeals to African people that would make them be compelled to test. I have come across individuals who are just as interested in reconnecting with their African American, Caribbean, South American brothers and sisters who have been disconnected from the transatlantic slave trade, but that's not necessarily everyone. So again, I'm just approaching this as a researcher with unique individuals is what is it that you would need to find to compel you to do this? And then that answer is going to be vary per person. And one initiative, I really just would love to see more African people in the database. And I know funding, if there could just be more funding and maybe more personalized approaches to that. I was having a conversation earlier in the room about when I went to Nigeria and was testing my cousin's grandparents. They were fully welcoming. It was like I wasn't a stranger because I knew him, and I had his father's name. And I think sometimes a barrier could be if we had just organizations coming in trying to test for who are you, why are you here, what why are you testing us, what do you need this for? And I think it would be just thinking off the top, it might facilitate easier testing if we had individuals who have connected with one person and then they go out and they are able to test other people. So, more testing.
Sherman, just one simple thing. What would you add to this, and then we'll end with Jon James and then take questions.
Okay, I was thinking last night that I would come up like a Pan-African genetic consortium of some sorts, and so where, like in Africa, we'll develop state-of-the-art research facilities that'll allow them to be in control of their data, and with that, they can create shared, will allow like people such as myself that work for a commercial company to gain access. So that's the first thing that I would do. The second one would be just having a unified ethical framework, because right now, much of Africa, there's not many laws or whatnot concerning genetics, and so we want to get rid of that, and so we're not really exposing their DNA to be manipulated, and so that's very important to me as well. And a knowledge exchange, so just having the idea of like HBCUs connecting with African institutions and having multicultural exchange programs, and maybe even providing fellowships where they go back and forth. And so those were a few ideas that I came up with. And so like this could be funded by, of course, public and private partnerships, working with NGOs, health organizations. Perhaps they can include Ancestry data with health tests that they're already doing anyhow, but we just don't have access over there. And so that's why I think, just a symposium like this is really great, because now we're able to like have real conversations amongst ourselves and maybe with people from the continent as well.
Thank you, thank you. John James?
Yes, I'm gonna agree with the other panelists as well. I would love to see, if I had just a big wish, of course, dual citizenship programs in African nations would serve all of us very well in the diaspora and on the continent. But a big wish for me would be if we can get at least 5 to 10 million African Americans knowing the tribes they descend from. I would like to eliminate the concept idea or the concept placeholder of being an African American, because it doesn't exist. And so I would like all of us to know specifically the tribes that we come from in Africa. That would be my biggest wish. And then of course, a pathway to citizenship back home.
Thank you so much.